Fallout 76 is a lot like the setting that the game takes place in, the Wasteland. We know it was a disaster, we know it is full of bugs. So there's a guy just standing here, you don't see him?
No.
Oh.
There's a guy on the ground here.
There's a guy on my screen. He's not moving. I can shoot him. He's doing damage.
Dude, I could see blood splatter in the air.
Yeah.
But there's nothing there.
And we know it is full of things that are going to try to take advantage of us. But despite that, like the Vault Dwellers, we are curious to see what the Wasteland is really like for ourselves. The bombs fell about 5 years ago or so, so just maybe they have rebuilt it to the point that it is a functional, inhabitable, and enjoyable place to explore. Now, if you don't remember, the launch of Fallout 76 was perhaps one of the worst major game launches of all time. It bombed everywhere. It had terrible reviews across the board on every platform. It had bugs aplenty. There was a Fallout 76 style battle royale mode that was added. Instead of spending that time on development and making the game better and adding new content, they instead decided to really cash in on the craze at the time and make a half-baked battle royale that was so bad that it doesn't exist anymore. Along with the terrible launch of the game, Bethesda was really getting hit from all sides for Fallout 76 because even the accessories were terrible. They had a helmet for Fallout 76 that had mold issues. They somehow even lied about the bag that came with a collector's edition. They said it would be a cloth bag. They showed this nice quality looking bag and instead shipped to people a nylon plastic bag that looked terrible. And not only that, there were so many delays and issues in getting this bag made to begin with that it became a massive news story. That's right, a bag of all things. They even sold a Fallout 76 whiskey that, from what I've heard online, tastes terrible.
What most customers anticipated was that they were paying for the production of high-quality glass bottles resembling those found in the Fallout universe that they could add to their collection. But what customers were dismayed to discover after Silver Screen had sent out a behind-the-scenes production video of this product shortly before shipping was that it wasn't for a glass bottle as most people were led to believe, but rather for a regular bottle of rum encased in a giant plastic shell.
Bethesda banned a player just because they had too much ammo despite having 900 hours of gameplay. There were hackers that were stealing entire players' inventories on public servers, but Bethesda took forever to finally do anything. And the game was so bad at launch that an angry customer destroyed a GameStop because they could not return the game. Bethesda had the genius idea to launch the game without player NPCs, so unless you were playing with other people, it was an incredibly lonely and boring experience because you're not interacting with other characters. There's just robots and monsters and data entries, and that was how you got quests, and it was painfully boring. Launching a game that receives terrible review scores, is utterly broken, and was full of lies before it came out is bad enough, but all of these other things together really just made this specific launch abysmal.
That's right, that's right. Human NPCs are coming to Fallout 76.
But like I said, this was all 5 years ago. Since then, they've added human NPCs, they've added new main story quests, they've added new creatures, new gear, new massive expansions of content like the Brotherhood of Steel. They added the irradiated ruins of Pittsburgh and the Pit Expedition. And in December of last year, they added Atlantic City. And this year, they have another roadmap, they're adding more content, so they have not abandoned this game. I mean, you gotta give credit where credit is due, and they have just... I mentioned the main things they've added, the main expansions, but look at this list of all of the different things they've added. And some of the things that aren't even on this list are improving things that honestly should have been improved to begin with, such as the inventory space being ridiculously small, and now it's a lot better. It's still too small, but I'll get into that later. We've got all these different things you're seeing on your screen right now. All these different blocks include extra little events, and these side events are just constantly popping off. There's always something to do. I mean, this is adding more storyline to the Brotherhood of Steel. This is adding another season, as well as some other special cards and camp stuff and UI improvements. And then they came out with a new custom world feature, and then there's a new event, and then here's another event that's going on, another seasonal mode, which means every single year these things are gonna be popping off. Another expansion, like I said, the Pit. Nuka World and Tour is a huge event that can happen. It's a big region boss. In fact, I've got some footage of that. We've got mutation invasions. We've got, I mean, there's so many different things that they've added to this game that there is truly constantly something to do and something going on. I would argue that there's almost too much content sometimes because I'm on the way to a quest and there are just things popping up for events nearby or across the map, or a nuke is going off. It is definitely not the dead game that it was when it launched.
That sometimes it doesn't just work.
Adding a massive amount of content is great. However, what really matters is the current game experience, and I also want to answer the question, does Fallout 76 deserve a second chance? And I'll get into what that means later, but let's start with the current experience of the game. The quests are really the meat of the game, and I would say that they're varied and interesting enough to keep you entertained, and the constant world events make it so something is just always happening in the world. And now that they've brought human NPCs into the game, I would say it really breathes a lot of new life into what was originally just a cold and boring and drab world. And I understand that Fallout takes place at the end of the world and the nukes went off and there aren't supposed to be a whole ton of people, but it was just very demoralizing that every single quest came from essentially a dead person in the past on a computer screen. It was just not fun, and it felt like Bethesda didn't really know what the end game was going to be, because you do all these quests and then you were just kind of done. But now that there are human NPCs, they've added factions, which is a really good idea, because I would say one of my favorite things about Fallout is seeing the different perspectives of each faction as you work with them and do their quests. And those different factions add another layer of varied gameplay and interesting content. So I'm very glad that they added those, and those are a ton of fun to play through. I would say the factions are probably my favorite part to play through. Now, that being said, even though this is your story and your adventure, this is still an MMO. And because of that, your actions don't quite hold the same weight as they would in a regular single-player game. It's not like you have the decision to destroy an entire city like you did in previous Fallout games, because those cities have to be there with other people. So I understand that we're not going to be getting the same type of story, but you know, it's just something to consider when it comes to this game. Now, let's talk about another thing that you're gonna be doing a lot in this game, and that is combat. Now, of course, there's melee and ranged combat, and I would say that, you know, if you didn't like previous Fallout games combat, you're not going to like this one. They haven't really done a whole lot new. In fact, I would say it's a little bit worse than previous Fallout games because VATS works differently. It doesn't slow down time and let you pick different parts. Instead, you are in real time and you're picking the different parts, and you kind of use up all your action points just hitting those parts. There's no slow-mo death cam with heads exploding and limbs flying off. And I would say that that was honestly the most satisfying part of the combat in the Fallout games, and some, I would say, Skyrim as well, because it's got those different kill animations, and those are not here. but even without it, I'd still say the combat is acceptable. Another one of the best parts of Fallout games, and I'd say Bethesda games in general, is exploration. In Fallout 76, now that they've added all of these different cities, I mean, it is massive. It is a massive map. There are so many different locales that add new and interesting enemies, and I would say that just because of the varying environments you go through, it keeps the game visually interesting, which pulls you in and makes you want to explore more. If you see that you have a quest marker all the way across the map, maybe sometimes you want to fast travel to a city in between just to, get the quest over with, but a lot of the times I really wanted to go through with the adventure and see what I would stumble across on the way. And again, those world events, there are a lot of different world events that are scattered throughout the game that are not marked anywhere to begin with, and then when you get there, you see them, they start happening, and you're having fun again. So the exploration is very strong in this game, and along with that joy of exploration, that is exponentially increased with friends. In fact, this entire game is just so much better when you're playing with people. When you're playing alone, it feels like a lesser Fallout game that is being held back by the fact that it is multiplayer and always online. However, if you're in a party with even just one other person, you can start to see the vision that Bethesda had in mind for this game. Even then, multiplayer isn't perfect, as there are quite a few instanced areas that would separate you from your party for really no logical lore reason, and then you kind of have to play solo until that section is over. Another massive drawback to multiplayer, and maybe it's just because I'm so used to it nowadays, but the fact that there's no cross-platform play is just ridiculous. I mean, they were bought out by Microsoft. Why have they not integrated cross-platform play? This is an online-only game, and by adding in cross-platform play and cross-progression, that would, oh my god, that would exponentially increase the longevity of this game. And I think they should do that, especially as the popularity is ramping up, and I think a way for them to keep that popularity is to enable cross-platform play. Now, I want to talk about whether or not this game really deserves a second chance. Because speaking of Bethesda's vision of the game, the entire premise of Fallout 76 was for it to be a game entirely made up by actual players. And, it feels like the idea kinda ended there. When the game originally launched, like I said, it didn't really have an end game, and there wasn't really a player economy that was interesting enough to continue to keep people playing. Other MMOs have accomplished this idea successfully, such as EVE Online, but I feel like the team that was developing this game was understaffed and just not prepared for this task. Instead, what we got, and what we have now, is essentially just a Fallout game but online. Along with that failed idea, the game still hasn't reached the immersion that was promised when it was first announced at E3 in 2018. The graphics are definitely not 16 times the detail, and we can't see distant weather systems like Todd told us we would. Bethesda has quite the reputation for lying and putting out buggy games, but Fallout 76 took that a step further. They added monetization on top of an already $60 game, and that just felt like an extra slap in the face, especially with the way that it launched. Now, I understand because it is an online live service game, they need to make money to continue to add new content. However, the way they decided to monetize this game is terrible to this day. They have microtransactions in the form of cosmetics, which also engages in FOMO, or the fear of missing out, by enticing players with limited time items. They also have, of course, they have to have it, that fake currency that you pay real currency for so they can obfuscate how much money you've actually spent on the game. A battle pass, which of course, if you want to skip to different levels and reach the farthest parts of the battle pass, but it's ending soon, I don't want to lose it. You get that FOMO again. You can pay money to skip tiers of the battle pass. And there's a premium subscription service, and I'll get to that in just a second. And they also have pay-to-win elements that you can buy, such as crafting supplies and health kits. Now, if they had stuck with premium cosmetics or just the battle pass, I think I could give the monetization a pass. But the fact that unlimited scrap and ammo storage is behind a paywall means they created an annoyance and they want you to pay for the solution. Anytime any game developer puts in some sort of limitation that is taken away by paying money is ridiculous. Plus, the fact that this costs $13 a month is a laughably high price for what you're getting. Yeah, you're getting some premium currency as well as some items, but this is $100 a year or $13 a month for essentially something that is unblocking something that shouldn't be there. There should not be a storage limit to begin with. No other Fallout game has that. I understand that on your person they've always had that weight limit, but in your supply box, wherever you go, you should have unlimited just like every other Bethesda game made, and the only reason they have it in this is because they want you to pay that $13 a month. Due to the lies and aggressive monetization, it makes it really hard for me to say that this game deserves a second chance at life. However, I think it just squeaks by and deserves a second chance due to just how much content they've added to this game. Now, that being said, you could argue that the only reason they added this content is because they didn't want to ruin the reputation of a major franchise and risk having future Fallout titles not sell as well. But I do want to give them credit for not simply burying it and moving on like EA did with Anthem. I would say that this game is worth giving a shot under the following circumstances. You've played the previous Fallout games, because if you haven't already, please play Fallout 3, play New Vegas, I guess Fallout 4, but play those other games that are meant for single player. Because yes, this game tries to be a single player online game that you can play by yourself, but you definitely feel the limitations of being an online game. Playing those other games, they have, well, Fallout 3 and New Vegas have better storylines, and I think those are a great place to start. Now, if you want to play Fallout but multiplayer, then I get it. You know, I would say it's worth trying out because you like the gameplay. And another reason or another circumstance I would say to give this game another shot is if you can pick it up for super cheap. In fact, I would argue that those other two circumstances, like you've already played the other ones and you want to play multiplayer, should still hinge on whatever price it is currently going for, because this game has gone down to $6, maybe even lower. So wait till it goes on sale, because it will. And I would argue that, let's say for $6, that is an insane amount of content and a hell of a value. It's hard for me to say to not get this game for $6, because it is genuinely a fun game, especially with friends. So please, down in the comments, let me know if you've already played Fallout 76, what your experience has been recently, if you're enjoying the game, or if you're thinking of picking it up, or if you think the game has already gone too far and you're not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I understand all three of these different things. Please do like the video if you guys liked it, subscribe for more content, and I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all my patrons and everybody that's watching right now for your patience, because I've been gone for quite a while and I've spent a lot of time on this video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a fantastic day. See you, everybody.